Hello everyone, my name is Dylan and welcome to another video. If you are new here, welcome. I post fun and entertaining English lessons every single Friday. And if you are not new here, hi, what's up, how you doing? So, in today's lesson, I'm going to be helping you to improve your modern RP British accent and speaking skills with the help of the shadowing technique. So, how does it work, I hear you ask? Well, I am going to be reading you some lines from random books, and I would like you just to listen and repeat after me. That is what the shadowing technique is. Don't worry if you find this hard, as throughout the video I'm going to be providing you with some helpful pronunciation tips, which should make this video a lot easier. Right guys, enjoy the video. Okay, we are starting on a light-hearted note, as I'm going to be reading from a book called Causing Chaos with Jeremy James. This was one of my favourite books when I was a child. It's really funny and they have these cute pictures in there as well. Honestly, I don't know why, I just really like this book. Anyway, I'd like you to listen to the passage and repeat after me. Chapter 5, A Frightening Experience. Daddy and Jeremy James were going fishing. Fishing was Daddy's latest hobby, and he said it was much more enjoyable than football, television, and paying bills. As Jeremy James had never been fishing, Mummy suggested he should go with Daddy, and as Jeremy James was not doing anything special that afternoon, he and Daddy set off for the river. Right, I hope that wasn't too hard. Let me just give you some quick pronunciation tips, and then we will actually have a go at reading it together at the same time. So I've basically just highlighted some words for us to focus on that I think will help you to unlock your inner British accent. So, Daddy and Jeremy James were going fishing. So you'll notice there that I didn't really say and, it was more like und. And that is something you will also notice a lot throughout this whole video. When we say that word, it sounds a lot more like und. Well, in the modern RP British accent anyway. So it's not Daddy and Jeremy James, it's Daddy and Jeremy James. It's a very small, subtle difference, but you may as well know what it is. Daddy and Jeremy James were going fishing. So it's the word were. And this is simply pronounced as if it were spelt W-U-R. Were. Okay? Fishing was Daddy's latest hobby. He said it was much more enjoyable than football. So it's the word than. Once again, we don't really say than, it sounds a lot more similar to than. So he said it was much more enjoyable than football. Not than football, than football. Right, so where it says as Jeremy James had never been fishing, so the word been, it looks like it should be pronounced been. However, that isn't the case. It's pronounced bin as if it were B-I-N. Right, we're now going to have a go at reading the passage together at the same time. This might be a bit tricky, but just do your best, and if you make a mistake, it doesn't really matter. You can replay it, or you have the whole video to practice as well, so it's happy days. Right, let's do this. Chapter 5, A Frightening Experience. Daddy and Jeremy James were going fishing. Fishing was Daddy's latest hobby, and he said it was much more enjoyable than football, television, and paying bills. As Jeremy James had never been fishing, Mummy suggested he should go with Daddy, and as Jeremy James was not doing anything special that afternoon, he and Daddy set off for the river. Okay, let's do one more from this book, and then we are going to switch to something a little bit more serious. Well, kind of. We have a wide selection of books today. It's going to be fun. Right, listen to the passage and repeat after me. This looks like a good spot said Daddy when they had reached the river. Let's try here. He took 2 folding stools out of the bag and set them on the ground. Then he took a maggot out of the tin and fixed it on the hook of his fishing line. Doesn't that hurt? Asked Jeremy James. Ouch, said Daddy, sticking the hook in his thumb. Yes, it does. Right, let me help you with a few words and then we are going to read it together at the same time. So the first word is, actually the first word we're going to look at is the A, the first letter, I guess. This looks like a good spot. This looks like a good spot. So it's the same with and, we say und kind of, and it's the same with this. It's not this looks like a good spot, it's this looks like a good spot, okay? And the second word is spot, spot. So the important thing about this is you want to make the ot sound, ot, ot. So my mouth kind of looks like a circle as I'm saying this, ot, ot. And then before that it's just the sp, sp. So sp, ot, spot, spot. The ot sound is quite important here. And also you will notice that my tone drops as I say that word as well. So spot, spot. Okay, now we're going to look at had. So can you guess what this, you already know what I'm going to say, right? So it's not when they had reached the river, it's more like when they had reached the river. When they had reached the river. Okay? It sounds a bit unnatural when I break it down slowly, but if you replay, you will hear that I said when they had reached the river, not when they had reached the river. So the next word we're going to look at is stools. Stools. So this is an easy way to sound very British indeed. So the thing you need to focus on is the ools sound. Ools. Ools. So similar to spot, you need to make the oo, the circle with your lips, and it's ools. Ools. St. Ools. Stools. The oo is quite stretched out. It's not stools, it's stools. The next word is maggot. So I know it's spelt as if it could be pronounced maggot, but it's more like maggot. Ut. So ut, not ot. Maggot. Maggot. The next word is hurt. Hurt. So we don't always pronounce the T's at the end of words in the UK. However, with this word we do. So it's hurt. Hurt. Quite a strong T at the end. Hurt. Right. Those words should be quite helpful for you when it comes to reading this paragraph again. And that's exactly what we're going to do now, but at the same time. So let's do this. This looks like a good spot, said Daddy when they had reached the river. Let's try here. He took 2 folding stools out of the bag and set them on the ground. Then he took a maggot out of the tin and fixed it on the hook of his fishing line. Doesn't that hurt? Asked Jeremy James. Ouch, said Daddy, sticking the hook in his thumb. Yes, it does. By the way, before I forget, I have just started a second channel called British Stories, where I will literally just be reading books and short stories to you all from start to finish. And you know, I might even be doing a little bit of ASMR as well. So if that does sound of interest, then hit the link in the top comment and press subscribe. The first video will be coming very soon. Brilliant. So the next book I'm going to be reading from is called The Thursday Murder Club by the British author Richard Osman. So this is a fun murder mystery book and I would definitely recommend it. Right, listen to the passage and repeat after me. Cooper's Chase always wakes early. As the foxes finish their nightly rounds and the birds begin their roll call, The first kettles whistle and low lamps start to appear in curtained windows. Right, pronunciation tips, and then we will read it together at the same time. So the first word is always. Always. So you want to stress the first syllable, all, and the ways is quite stretched out as well. So always, always. So you want the ways, ways. The second word is early. Once again, the stress is on the first syllable, early, but don't be confused by that Y. So it's not early, it's early, as if it were spelt with two E's. So L-E-E, early. The next word is birds. So I know it's got an I there, but don't let that confuse you. Just imagine that this was spelt with a U. So birds. It's not birds, it's birds, birds. The final word we are going to look at is curtained. Low lamps start to appear in curtained windows. This one is slightly confusing because of the ending. It's got the T-A-I-N-E-D ending, which, it should be tained. It should be curtained, however, it's not. And this is especially confusing because we have another word in English which is similar to this, contained, and that is pronounced tained. However, with curtained, it's tund. So I'm sorry, there's a lot of inconsistencies and irregularities in the English language in general. So yeah, you just need to learn these. Really, that's the only way. So the word is curtained. 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 Right. Let's have a go at reading this together at the same time. Cooper's chase always wakes early. As the foxes finish their nightly rounds and the birds begin their roll call, the first kettles whistle and low lamps start to appear in curtained windows. Okay, so speaking of curtains, the next book is the Encyclopaedia of Curtains. Obviously, I know this is an absolute classic. I think everyone has a copy of this on their bedside table. So I do apologize if you've read this before and it all sounds very familiar. It's a classic for a reason. Everyone loves this book. So, listen to the passage and repeat after me. To the left, we have a magnificent French window which brought out the best in our designer. The result brings an incredible feeling of light and freshness into this spacious living room. Guys, very quickly, before I get to the pronunciation on this one, I have to show you this lovely, spacious living room that they are talking about. Look at this. I'll just put a picture on the screen for you to admire, and let me just talk about this quickly. So, we have this beautiful, elegant, free-flowing curtain that's contrasting perfectly with this dark, concrete floor, which lays the base of this elegant table once again with this beautiful black curling metal which perfectly matches this candle thing that we have going on the left. We have some elegant black and white plates on the right, a tasteful ornament on that table which matches the gold pattern on the curtains, and some fresh flowers. Even the grapes look ripe and delicious. This truly is the epitome of elegance. I might be in the wrong profession, I should be a real estate agent, really. Anyway, let's look at the pronunciation. So the first word we're going to look at, well, firstly, I said to the left we have magnificent, so not a magnificent. And the second word is magnificent. These longer words are always harder to pronounce, so don't worry. It's magnificent. Magnificent. And there are two things to remember here. Firstly, it's a soft C. When it is a soft C, we say S, not K. So magnificent, not magnificent. You will know most of the time whether it's a soft C or not because there is a grammar rule which is correct most of the time, right? And that rule is if the C comes before a I, E, or Y, it's more often than not a soft C, so it's a S sound. So for example, city, cycle, certain. And secondly, it's not cent, it's more like sunt. So magnificent, magnificent. And the next word is designer. So we have a silent G here, which means that you may as well pretend that it doesn't exist. So it's not designer, designer, it's designer, designer. Okay? The next word is spacious. And we've just covered this with the soft C with magnificent. This C comes before the I, and therefore it's soft and it's spacious. So not spacious, spacus, it's spacious. Right, let's have a go at reading it together. To the left, we have a magnificent French window, which brought out the best in our designer. The result brings an incredible feeling of light and freshness into this spacious living room. Okay, so the final book from today's video is none other than Winnie the Pooh. Repeat after me. One day, when Pooh Bear had nothing else to do, he thought he would do something. So he went round to Piglet's house to see what Piglet was doing. It was still snowing as he stumped over the white forest track. And he expected to find Piglet warming his toes in front of his fire. But, to his surprise, he saw that the door was open, and the more he looked inside, the more Piglet wasn't there. Pronunciation tips, and let's look at this first sentence. One day when Pooh Bear had nothing else to do. Right, so the first word we're going to look at is had. And you should know by now, I'm not going to say had, I'm going to say had. So when Pooh Bear had nothing else to do. And the second word we're going to look at is nothing. So even though it has this O sound, so it looks like it could be nothing, for me personally, I would say nothing. So it's a bit lighter, it's more of like a U sound. So it's not Pooh Bear had nothing to do. Pooh Bear had nothing to do, right? And that's just how I would say it. The next thing we're going to look at is where it says, it was still snowing as he stumped over the white forest track. So two words in particular. The first one is very important, and that is stumped. Stumped, right. This is a mistake that a lot of my students make, and it normally comes with these past tense verbs, so verbs in the past tense, that have the ed ending. So words such as stumped, filmed, watched, decided, for example. Let's look at stumped, right? So because it has this ed ending, it looks like it should be stumped. However, this is not the case, and this goes for pretty much all of these past tense verbs that have this ud ending. It's d, not ed. So watched, not watched. Stumped, not stumped. There are a few exceptions to this rule, not so much with the verbs, but with other words such as wicked. For example, it's not wicked, it's wicked. But with these verbs, it does tend to be the d, not the ed. So that's just something useful for you to know. Right, the next thing we're going to look at is stumped over the white track. So this word over. So for the start, you need to make your lips into a circle again. So O, and then the ver, even though it's V-E-R, it's not there, it's ver. Over, 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 right? So stumped over. Perfect. And then the final word is toes. 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 So this, once again, you need the circle for the O sound, and it's quite stretched out. O, O's, O's. And right at the beginning, you need the little t sound. So, toes, 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 right? And that is it. That is the final pronunciation tip I'm going to give you. So, for the final time in today's video. Let's read it together at the same time. One day, when Pooh Bear had nothing else to do, he thought he would do something, so he went round to Piglet's house to see what Piglet was doing. It was still snowing as he stumped over the white forest track, and he expected to find Piglet warming his toes in front of his fire. But, to his surprise, he saw that the door was open, and the more he looked inside, the more Piglet wasn't there. Right guys, and there we have it. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to hear me read some short stories and books to you all, and of course a little bit of ASMR as well, then why not subscribe to my second channel? The link is in the top comment, and I'll be posting my first video very soon, hopefully at some point next week. So yeah, that's definitely one to look out for. Right guys, thank you again so much for watching, and until actually, I will see you next Friday. That's when I post videos. Next Friday. Cool. Well, I'll see you there. Cheers.